After a month of setbacks, I finally finished watching Game of Thrones Season 3, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your thoughts on Season 3 of Game of Thrones. This is a spoiler review, so feel free to spoil away about Game of Thrones Seasons 1, 2, and 3 down below in the comment section, but this is my first time watching through the show, so please don't discuss what happens later on in the series. With that said, if you aren't aware, I started watching through Game of Thrones again back at the end of January. I had watched seasons 1 and kind of 2 over the last several years, and it hadn't really connected with it. Some of that related to I was watching it with my wife. It is much too hardcore for her, so she just wasn't digging it at all. And then she got sick with COVID at the end of January, and therefore she was quarantined in the other room. I had a free little window of time there, so I decided to give it a second shot. And I've been posting reviews on my second channel, Sean Chandler Plus, and all future Game of Thrones season reviews will be on Sean Chandler Plus. You can check those out right up here. I only posted this one on the main channel, basically as a way to let more people know that I am reviewing it over there. I am watching through it, and I do plan to rank the seasons and probably talk about my favorite characters and all that fun stuff when I finish the show. So with that said, let's get started with my general impressions on Season 3. And on the positive side, the show continues to do a great job of having complex, layered characters where someone like Jaime is presented in the first season as just a monster. Really, through most of the second season, he's just a monster. And then you get into Season 3, and they start to reveal why he is the way that he is and kind of the weight and the burden that he carries. And you see his positive side. And they keep doing that. The people that you think have no redeeming qualities, they eventually go, no. Here's what's really going. Here's what else he's thinking, feeling, and why he's been doing what he's been doing. Another one, I felt that the dialogue this season was just a bit snappier. There's just a bunch of interactions where I just think they took things up to the next level in the way they found a way to have like actual laugh out loud moments, while at the same time feeling like it properly fits in this universe with the characters. Not that they're going for cheap humor, but they found a way to just have really sharp writing. Of course, Tyrion is one of the main characters in that, but I just think the scene where he learns who he's marrying and then Cersei learns who she has to marry, it's just written so well, so sharp. And that seemed like an area that this season elevated over the previous ones. Another one, there's some just great moments of payoff when it comes to Daenerys' plotline of you've been on this journey with her and you keep getting to these points in time that you just feel the sense of victory with what she manages to accomplish. And of course, when you get to the Red Wedding, just really shocking stuff where, you know, I'd heard many times about how this show just kind of subverts audiences' expectations and it's written really sharp and it goes against everything you're expecting. And as much as Ned dying in season 1 was that, this was so much more so. The show sets you on one path. You know you're heading in a specific direction. You think you're heading towards one thing, and then you realize, nope, that is not where we're headed at all. And when the episode ended, I was like, I don't even know what the show's about anymore. I don't know where we're headed. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happens now. Like, I don't have any predictions as to what the next episode is because I was heading down this path, and we are not heading down that path anymore. But it was done in a way that after it happens, you immediately go, okay, yeah, you set that up. Yeah, you set all that up. It was shocking, unexpected, but not unearned. All the praise aside, for me, this season felt like a pretty big drop in forward momentum from seasons 1 and 2. When I previously tried to watch the show and I binged season 1 and then very slowly watched season 2. A bunch of people tried to get me to continue watching by telling, season 3 is when it really picks up. Season 3 is when it really gets good. So I don't know if I went into this season with maybe my expectations too high or expecting something different. But it felt to me like there just wasn't that clear objectives, things that we were working towards in this season that we'd had in the previous 2. I knew what I wanted to happen or what I was working towards, that story momentum. I didn't feel that here. It's like talking about season 2, you have Robb having these big victories, a romance that's kind of growing. Tyrion finds his place as acting Hand of the King. We're building towards that final battle in episode 9 where you have Tyrion really step up to the plate. You have some really interesting character dynamics with Tywin and Arya, kind of forming a strange friendship of sorts, and then the assassins kind of it. There are a bunch of kind of intriguing things where I wanted to see what was going to happen next. Theon's story was just horrifically tragic as he's making these terrible decisions, but in some sense they make that there's a logic to why he's doing what he's doing, as horrific as it was. And with all these plot lines, it was like, man, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next with each one of these. So whenever it cut to their segment, I was excited. I was like, okay, man, finally I'm going to get an update on what's happening here. And when we cut away to the next segment, the other plot line, it's like, man, I can't wait till we get back to that one. And when it came to season 3, though, it just felt like a lot of people walking in the forest, walking in the snow, or being stuck somewhere. And so when we cut to these plot lines, it's like, okay, once again, people walking in the woods having the same conversations. Jon Snow is walking through the snow with his girlfriends trying to get back to base camp to attack it. The whole season. That's the whole season, him walking in the snow with his girlfriend to this one place. That's it. No, I guess the fact that they finally decide to seal the deal. Okay, they're a legit couple. Okay, gotcha. That's it. Arya, she's stuck with Robin Hood and his merry men, just kind of in the woods. They come across these people and they're just chilling with them. And some people come and go. Hound shows up, but it just feels like she's stuck with them this whole season. Sam spends half the season walking through the woods, carrying a baby. More people walking in the woods. Jaime and Captain Phasma just trying to get back to King's Landing the entire season. Small little progress on the plot lines. Bran walking around talking about his visions the entire season. Theon stuck getting tortured horrifically the entire season, even when he escapes. Nope, that was actually just the cage expanding and him being tortured in one more way for a little bit longer, and then he's back to being tortured. And so it just felt like we had a bunch of plot lines that we'd cut to it and I'd be like, okay, more of this. Okay. When is there going to be a change up where we're not walking in the snow, walking in a forest, stuck being tortured? And so I don't know, it was just frustrating to me that it felt like so many of these plot lines just felt like redundant. We're doing the same thing all season. And even our big, gigantic, shocking Red Wedding, because it was shocking and unexpected, it wasn't something that we felt like we were building towards. You could look back and see the tragedy of the choices that led to that moment. But as you're watching the season, you think you're heading towards one thing. You're not expecting what you do get, and therefore you don't even have story momentum towards that thing, and which, like I said, why it's so shocking and unexpected. So there's just most of these storylines, these threads, just didn't have that forward momentum, and that frustrated me for this season, because I just think they needed to have more of that. And I'm very much hoping that when we get to season 4, people realizing maybe they need to unite, these White Walkers are coming. That's what I'm hoping that can give us more forward momentum of I know what I'm moving towards, and characters have progress. It's not so much them somewhat in a stagnant type location, stagnant setting, having the same types of conversations. Can we trust Jon Snow or not? Will they, won't they? Are they, aren't they in love? Bran has visions. Cool. Oh yeah, he has a brother. I don't know his name, but he's got a brother that's just kind of there. I'm hoping that we start getting more forward progress, because this one was pretty frustrating to just feel like they hit the brakes this whole season. What it felt like to me. Anyway, from there, let's move on to specific plot lines, dive in deep on them. First one we'll talk about is Jaime and Captain Phasma, and I thought this was where some of our best character work was done, primarily because Jaime was such a monster in season 1, just a villainous character, and then he was so confident and jerkish in season 2, still basically a monster. And this season is where he's just been held captive for so long, loses so much that he just starts to break down, and you get at the core of why he is the way he is. And of course, once his hand is cut off, once he realizes that his usual bag of tricks isn't working on these people, his usual charm, his money isn't working, and he's lost his hand, and he's defined by that skill set. That's all he is to this world is what he can do with that hand, and it's gone. Suddenly he has to brought down to the level of everyone else, and starts forming a friendship with Captain Phasma in this way that you see him very differently. And, he's breaking down, talking about this label of Kingslayers, that the thing he's most famous for, the thing that in a sense, because of his great skill, he takes pride in. It's also his great shame. That's not what he wanted. That's not the path he wanted to go down. That's not the label he wanted. And he despises it. And you continue down this path to where through the little lines of he starts to care about her enough that he doesn't want bad things to happen to her. So he keeps protecting her. This person that kind of is holding him captive, taking him across to King's Landing, return him. He respects her enough, cares about her enough. Like this guy that seemed like he didn't care about anything or anyone, cares specifically about her. And so stops her from getting raped one night by telling this story about all the riches from where he comes back. And we get through the story when he's finally returning home, and she's stuck behind. And he hears a little piece of information about how they decided not to trade to have her returned, tied to the lie that he told. And he realizes that she's not safely going back. She's in trouble, and therefore uses his charm to go and rescue her. The guy that was irredeemable for 2 seasons, this guy just doesn't care about anyone, suddenly becomes the hero and heads back, jumps into a pit with a bear in it to save her. And even in that, it's a manipulation that he knows if he's in there, there's a bunch of people that aren't going to let him die because he's valuable to them. Therefore, she's able to escape. And he knows that they'll probably rescue him before he dies. And at the same time, he's throwing himself into an extraordinarily dangerous situation to save someone else. And that's just I'd heard a bunch of people saying in the comments, Jaime ends up being one of my favorite characters, and I'm not very far from that thus far. When incest, trying to kill a kid, everything he does to Ned, still got some work he needs to do, but you just see a very deep redemptive arc taking place with him. That's just really, really cool stuff. I didn't see it going into the season, but I knew everyone told me it was coming, and that was some of the most satisfying stuff. Now I'll go back over to Jon Snow. In season 1, he was kind of one of my favorites because he is a natural underdog, a guy with talent, but wants to do the honorable thing, goes off, realizes the place he's at isn't as honorable as he is, but he wants to stand out on his own, and so he starts to find a way to stand out. And then I don't know, it feels like the last 2 seasons, he's just walking around in the snow. For 2 seasons, he's just walking around in the snow. One of those seasons, he's got the girl is his hostage. Second season, he's joined these weirdos, and it just was repetitive. Does the girl really like him? Are they going to get together or not? Can they trust him or not? Is he turned? Is he not? And it was just that for 10 episodes. And by the time you get to the end of it, it pays out. We have the moment where it goes somewhere and the tides turn and he won't kill someone and has to make his choices. And of course, deciding to go and sleep with her in the cave hot tub. violating his vows and stuff like that. So he's a very conflicted person in many regards, but he's still a good guy and doesn't want to just kill innocent people for no reason, and certainly doesn't want them doing that to his people. But it took like so many episodes to get there. So many episodes of, I don't know if we can trust you, leading up to that moment. I wish some of these were just moved at a brisker pace, because I just don't know that we needed 8 episodes of the will they, won't they, can you trust them, can you not trust them, 8 episodes of walking in just the same conversation. So we'll talk about the Stark kids for a little bit. So at the end of last season, the assassin helps Arya and her friends escape from that nasty place. They head off into the woods. So they're kind of walking around, and pretty quickly they come across basically a group of religious bandits that aren't endangering them, but they're not necessarily looking to help them either. And then a little bit into their journey together, the Hound shows up, and so it's kind of revealed who she is. And eventually the witch shows up, finds the Baratheon boy, takes him. That plot seemed like it was actually kind of moving forward a little bit. But then, with Arya, she's just, the Hound fights a guy, kills a guy, the guy comes back. So you're establishing kind of the religious zealotry of these people and why they believing some of this wacky stuff. But it's like 2 seasons of her on the road. It's 2 full seasons of her on the road with different people, and she's in places where she's a victim of her circumstance. She's a person of action. She's willing to pick up her sword, swing it around, but she's in context where she's just, wherever they go, that she goes. So they just feels like these plots are meandering. You don't feel the forward momentum, recurring theme of the season. And then the ultimate example of that is just Bran and his visions. The whole season, just our wildling lady doesn't trust these new people, and they bicker a little bit, and then they talk about visions more, and then we cut to the next thing. And then at the end of the season, we almost we get the realization, he can control animals too. He has this vision thing. He can put people to sleep. Cool. Got a little bit more stuff. But it was episode 9. It was 8 episodes of just wandering around. No momentum, no thing we're headed towards, nothing I specifically wanted to happen, just the same kind of situations repeating. Frustrating. Then we get to Theon, and I thought that Theon was one of the more captivating plot lines of season 2, because it was just so tragic to watch this guy in a desperate attempt to get the approval of his biological family betrays the family that actually raised him, the community that he was raised in the most grotesque ways. And the whole time he's so conflicted. He just keeps heading down the path, and you're thinking, man, as compelling as this is, this guy better have it coming. Like, there has to be payback for this. But you want the payback to come from Robb or the actual, our heroes, to get justice to happen because of them. Because he destroys Winterfell, this beloved, the actual kingdom of nice people, decent people. He destroys it, brings such chaos to it because of his own insecurities and lack of understanding of his place in this world. And then it leads to like we wanted him to see him pay, and they're like, you want to see him pay for this? Here you go. It just turns into a full season of literally watching him being tortured in the worst ways possible. It's psychological. It's all of it for a full season. It's just nasty, grotesque at times. And it's not coming from someone where you feel a sense of justice. It's coming from someone that makes you go, oh, he was captive by someone, just not someone that's seeking to torture him out of some compelling vision to avenge the Starks, or he's just like a sadist. Oh, and the continuing tragedy of Theon as he ends up in this horrible place because of the path he put himself on. And once again, it doesn't make up for any of the things that he did before. It's just one more place where he gets tortured in his life. And the one thing that the bit of hope that does come out of this Theon little plot line is that the other kind of lingering plot line to it is that it seemed like his dad seemed like he just didn't care. Like he really had just didn't care about this son in a just this nasty way. Why is Theon so insecure and conflicted and torn in these different directions? Because he was given away by his father and then treated secondhand because of that. And then that father doesn't even care about him and doesn't own the fact that he's the one that gave him away. So he doesn't care about him, but his sister does. And she's like, I don't care what you're doing, Dad. I'm going to go get my brother back. And you start having those little moments of as much as you're okay with this guy did terrible things and killed people just because of his daddy issues. At the same time, you want his family to make the right choices. I talked about this a lot in my season 2 review of one of the things the show does so well is having, or at least season 2 did really well, having these situations where you have two feelings about it. You both want him to be rescued, and at the same time, you want him to pay for what he did. You don't want his father to be successful, and you don't want his father to benefit from any of this because he's such a monster and so cold towards his own son, but you want his sister to make the right choice and rescue him. You feel two things at once. And Theon, that final episode where you get the glimpse of hope, helped with some of that. And then we have the tragedy of Robb Stark. Now, this is one that's interesting because it seemed a lot like as much as he was winning a war, the whole story here, all the conflicts was much more the interpersonal stuff, the choices that he made, and that kind of set a series of things in motion that led to horrific demise. All of it kind of running throughout these 2 seasons. It's a 2-season arc of these falling all the way back to season 1, where they cut this deal where he needs to marry the daughter of this really nasty, gross guy. He's not crazy about that, but that's what they needed to do at that moment to try and succeed in the ways they wanted to succeed. He has his victories in the war because of it. And at the same time, his father did end up getting saved, and he's supposed to marry someone he doesn't really want to marry. Meets the girl that he ends up marrying in season 2, which just sets down this path of destruction where he made a choice for love that doomed his army, doomed his cause, that he burned a bridge that he really shouldn't have burned by pursuing love. And it's something that certainly as 21st century Westerners, me being Western, I know many of you have a global audience, but our value set of individualism versus collectivism, he makes a choice that very much we understand, that you marry for love, not for collective duty. But because of that, it sets them on this path. And then along these same lines, that his mother frees Jaime Lannister, which angers this guy over here because Jaime just killed his son. And you just see the complex web of relationships and scenarios creating this, what's going to happen here? And little things that, even though Robb has won every battle, he's losing the war, and he's slowly, because of these choices that they're not bad strategic, they're not, at the first face value, they're not strategic war choices, but he's losing the war because of it. So angry guy that, because he didn't get revenge on Jaime, decides to go kill 2 random Lannisters, so a couple of kids. And you see why he's doing that, because of the barbaric worldview here. But Robb, coming from the noble family, we don't do things like this. And he told the guy not to do it. He did it anyway. And so everyone advised him, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. We will lose these people. You lose the war if you do this. And he decides to execute the guy anyway. And he wants to make sure that people don't stand up to him, that he's the king of the North, and they respect his authority. He's getting further and further down this path of just dangerous choices that all lead to, he wants to make this bold attack at the Lannisters' homeland and needs some allies, decides to marry off one of his relatives to cranky old man. His wife gets pregnant, and they go in thinking we're having a wedding. Lets the guy talk down to him, be rude to him, but lets his guard down enough, walks into a room with this guy who, unbeknownst to us and to them, has cut a deal with the Lannisters and is betrayed, and kicks off with guys stabbing his pregnant wife in the gut. Woo! It's a tough image, followed by him getting struck with arrows, his mother getting struck with arrows, and then his mother desperately pleading for his life while threatening to kill cranky old man, one of his many wives who's way younger than him. It's just probably not going to work because it doesn't seem like he's a guy that's super close with these people. And eventually they kill Robb anyway, or the guy that betrayed them, that they thought was their friend. It walks over, stabs Robb. She slits the wife's throat and then gets arrowed or slit her own throat slit, dies in just horrifying fashion. Probably shouldn't be uncomfortable giggling at that one. Sometimes I laugh uncomfortably at awkward, violent things, and people are like, what are you so... It's an awkward giggle. Certain people giggle at awkward situations. So I don't know how you're supposed to talk about the Red Wedding, but whew, what a moment. If you don't know, I filmed a reaction to it. It'll be on my buddy LC Screen Talks channel. It probably won't come up for a month, but I actually watched it for the first time. There's a reaction to it that we did, so that exists, and I'll share it on my community everything when it comes out. But there is a reaction as I watched that for the first time, and all the horror that is that plot line. And then you have the guy afterwards that was the betrayer who reflects on it of Robb's arrogance and if he'd listened to him and stuff like that. And you just think like maybe he was arrogant, but he was also making a lot of wise choices and winning a lot of wars and winning a lot of allies in other regards too. So maybe his noble character had some value, and you're just a terrible, terrible human. Then back at King's Landing, we've got a bunch of weddings in the works. Tyrion had previously been acting hand of the king, and then after the battle, they decide to shuffle him off to the side. And so he's pretty mad about that, confronts his dad about it. His dad openly states kind of what he already knew, that about not wanting him, not caring about him, but because he is a Lannister, by duty, he has to kind of treat him differently, or has to let him live, basically. And I mean, it's just like these heartbreaking things for a father to tell his son, especially because Tyrion is one of the more likable characters on the show that seems to learn, grow, care about people. And so when you hear him say all these things, it's just so brutal. But eventually he does get kind of a new job, but not one that's quite as impressive as before. All while this is happening, there's all sorts of politics going on here. Hunger Games, that's what I call it. I guess Marjorie becomes Joffrey's new fiance, and she's really good at the political game and manipulating people. So Cersei hates her for that. And her mom, or was it Marjorie's mom, is this old lady that's a ton of fun because she seems just tired of all this stuff. So she's playing along, but she just says exactly what she's thinking in a way that every time she's on screen, she's the best. She's amazing at the way she just calls out the absurdities of everything going on. And the whole season, they're trying to figure out what to do with Sansa. Who she's going to marry. Is this person going to ship her off here? Is she going to marry this person? So she has like 1,000 fiancés throughout the entire season. And we get into the second half as the Lannisters figure out the Tyrells are trying to do in marrying her, and they realize that she's the Stark family, so whoever marries her gets a really nice political advantage in all of this, and they're just deciding who she's going to marry, which, it, in and of itself is an interesting scenario. All of it leading up to Tywin deciding that she's going to marry Tyrion. And I'm well aware enough of Game of Thrones. I knew Red Wedding really bad, knew it was in season 3. So I was able to piece together what's the most horrifying thing that could happen. Okay, she's pregnant. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Okay. So I was able to piece a lot of things together from what I kind of knew. I didn't know anything about this wedding. I didn't know that one was coming. I didn't know that was on the table. So when you're sitting at a table and he turns to me like, you'll marry her. I was, it's just as like, what? Where is this going? It just as, I just didn't know that was happening. And so then they get married and you reach the point in time where Tyrion legitimately seems to stop caring at all about self-preservation. And multiple times in the last few episodes, just stands straight up to Joffrey, and it is glorious. And at the same time, of course, Tywin was never afraid of Joffrey, and so he stands up to him multiple times. And so every time anyone stands up to Joffrey, it's so satisfying because you had a season and a half, Joffrey becomes king, and he's the worst, and there's nobody in place that can stand up to him. Therefore, he's just getting away with doing all this stuff. You see him as a monster. He's kills off the, I don't remember the lady's name, kills off one of the prostitute ladies that he's been torturing multiple times just because he's a sadist. No one stands up to him. And then at Tyrion's wedding, he just stands up to nope, we're not doing a bedding ceremony. We're not doing that. And slams a knife into the table in front of a group of people, defies this king, and then does it again in a meeting. He just doesn't care what's going to say. And of course, the scene where Tywin walks up to him while he's sitting on the Iron Throne, it's shot in a way to you just see him stand up and tower over Joffrey, and is just talking in such a condescending manner to him. And every time Joffrey's trying to fire back, aren't I supposed to be counseled? He's like, you're being counseled right now. All of it. So good. So enjoyable. Just everything that you wanted. So it was kind of, while there wasn't we weren't moving towards a battle, I think simply because I think Tywin and Tyrion are such interesting characters. And then, Mother Tyrell? I don't know what her name is. Another really interesting character. And you have enough of these rotating around marriages that it felt like there was actual movement there while it's all just interpersonal type stuff. So I was actually tracking along with a bunch of the King's Landing stuff in a way that there's a lot of people you love to hate, a bunch of people you're kind of rooting for. You want to see what's going to happen. So I still kind of dug most of everything that was going on there versus all the plot lines where people are just walking. And we'll catch up a little bit on Stannis Baratheon. And so he is, after his loss before Locks, I don't remember if this was the beginning of this season. I think it was the beginning of this season. The way I watched this, I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes, and there was a month gap before I watched the rest of them because of just a series of kind of incidents just kind of happened, and there was this snowmageddon in Texas, and I had to share a room with my kids for a week, and it wasn't like, hey kids, let's sit down and watch Game of Thrones today. So sometimes I get confused as what was season 2, what was season 3 at the beginning stuff. But Onion King does what he's always done. He's honest with Stannis, and so he gets locked up. And Witch Lady continues to try and manipulate Mr. Stannis, not quite sure what she wants. And so eventually she tracks down Baratheon Bastard, brings him back. Onion Knight guy realizes that they just want to kill this guy for his blood and sacrifice him. He's like, I don't want any of this. And Stannis releases him, seemingly because he knows that this guy's his conscience, but he can't admit to it. It's a very interesting dynamic of this guy that doesn't believe but does believe, knows what's right, but continues down the path. There's strange dichotomy inside of him in the actions that he takes versus what he says versus what he clearly wants. So frees Onion Knight guy, who sees that they're going to try and kill off this Baratheon Bastard guy, and he's like, this is your own family, and this is not right. So he ends up, and the Baratheon guy didn't know that he was the bastard, and so he has this moment where he's revealed that he has king's blood in him. And so then Onion Knight guy ends up freeing him, puts him in a boat, and says, head on off out of here. And the thing that saves our Onion friend from getting killed and executed at the end of this was the fact that just in time for the season to end, word gets back to the wall that White Walkers, they are coming. It is happening. There is an army. They are coming. And so that final episode, they send out ravens everywhere to say that, like, we all need to unite to stop this force. And our onion friend has learned to read because daughter of Stannis taught him to read just enough so he reads a letter saying they're coming. And so I don't know if he strategized all this or was just lucky enough, but he frees Baratheon, or Bastard Baratheon, which would almost certainly get him killed otherwise. But he's able to go, you're going to need me. This is what's happening. And we need a proper strategy for this, and you need someone that'll be honest with you. That's why he set me free. That's why you've always trusted me. Never lied to you. You need me, and saves his life in that last little bit. And finally, we have Daenerys and her plot line. So at the end of the season, she leaves on some ships, and now she needs her army. And so she goes to this island, or not island, goes to this place. I don't know what it is, an island, whatever, where they sell armies of slaves. And it does a really nice job of spending several seasons making you think that you're starting to reveal like a big character flaw for her, that she's compromising on her values to go and get this army. She wants the army so bad. She's like her brother that she just, at any cost, she's going to make this happen, sacrifices her values to get this army. And the whole while we can read the subtitles of what this guy that she's buying them from is saying about her, the way he's describing her, and it's through a translator. And so he's just talking down, saying all this stuff, like condescending, thinks she's an idiot, doesn't think she has money, doesn't think she can do anything with this. And we know what he's saying because of the subtitles, but we're led to believe that she doesn't know what he's saying. And eventually she said, "I'll trade you a dragon for this army." And her friend zone and her other counselor guy are like, no. And she's like, don't question me ever again. Don't question my authority. Like, I know what I'm doing. You do not do that in front of other people. And we're thinking, like, they're right, though. We can't trade one of your dragons. Like, what is she doing? She's trading her values, trading a dragon to get an army of slaves. What is she thinking? All of it leading up to maybe one of the best scenes of the entire season, where she comes up to make this trade, hands this guy the leash with a dragon on it. You're like, no, why are we doing this? Why are you doing this? Please don't give him a dragon. They're your dragons. Hands it to him, and he's clearly struggling with it. And she turns around, and she just starts commanding all these orders to the army in the language. And the guy doesn't first adhere because he's like fighting with his dragon, trying to get his dragon under control. And then she's commanding them basically to kill every slave master, everyone with the whip, kill them. And the guy realizes, wait, she's talking my language. And you have this moment where you realize every time that he called her a nasty name, said she was an idiot, said she heard every single bit of it. She's like, this is my native tongue. Of course I speak this language. And then says it with Dracul, whatever her word is. And the dragon just torches the guy. And it's like one of these just fantastic moments of like, as you realize what she was doing the whole time, and her counselor got like, she's this mastermind. How did she, okay, wow, okay. And she gets her army, gets to keep her dragon, and walks outside and says, all these guys, you guys are free. Like, we don't do slaves here. You're not a slave army. You serve me if you choose. And you are all free men moving forward, and they decide to stay with her as the person that freed them. And it kind of plays that out over the next couple of episodes where the guy walks up and, hey, what's your name? He's been decided to put in charge of it. And he says his name, and it's like, I don't remember what the guy's, like Dirty Worm or something like that. That's just very degrading. And she hears it, and she's like, whoa, well, you're not keeping the name Dirty Worm. Pick whatever name you want for yourself because you're a free man now. And like his response is like, no, that's the name I want because that's the name I had when I was freed by you. And it's like this moment, like these people like legitimately believe in her because she freed them. And you realize just the power of what she's doing and has this worldview, this ideology that is like cares about people while at the same time having this like view of herself that she's meant to lead all these people. True believer in all of it, but at the same time, leading people, not the tyrant forcing them, leading them, setting an example, setting them free, and like powerful stuff. And they come to a second city, and there's this army of dudes that are, I didn't track exactly what the nature of it, but there's 3 guys leading this group of soldiers. And one of them is Ed Skrein, bad guy from Deadpool in Alita. I called him Face Man to my wife because he has his face in Alita and the rest of him's a robot body. And basically Ed Skrein is commanded to go and kill Daenerys by the rest of his group. And one of them is just like the trashiest guy ever. And Ed Skrein, because he was picked to do this, sneaks into the base to kill her. Surprise, he's not there to kill her. He's got all of their heads in a bag, dumps their heads out. He's like, I'm going to join up with you. So they join in, and they sneak into this city that's filled with slaves and actually get a bunch of battle, and they come back. And they're all covered in blood. And they're like, it was just like you said, Daenerys, like when you said they're free men, they turned, they like decided to fight for us. And like the closing scene of the season is the gates opening, just thousands of people pouring out, calling her mother as her dragons like fly over it. And everyone's like holding their swords like worried, like, are they just going to hurt us? And she just walks into the people. Like she has this awareness of people and how they work and what to motivate them. And you just feel like victory, especially coming right after the Red Wedding in the previous episode. That was like, my soul is gone. Oh no, what are we working towards? Who's the good guys? What am I supposed to care about? And then this happens. You're like, yes, like victory. I've heard some things about later in the show, maybe not so victorious as I'd hope, perhaps, but have this moment where at least you feel kind of a sense of like, yes, we're moving towards, people have been freed and she was responsible for it, and like swelling music's playing and we're seeing dragons flying, which is always fun and cool. Anyway, there you have it. That's kind of my thoughts on the whole season and what I was feeling as I experienced things. For the most part, a lot of, I just wish they'd moved the plot forward a little bit more because there was sharp writing. There were moments of payoff, but there are several of these plot lines. They weren't going anywhere. They had like 3 episodes of plot spread over 10 episodes. And you felt that, like just repeating the same things over and over and over again. That was frustrating, which I'm starting to do a little bit. So let's close this one out. Let me know your thoughts down below and keep talking movies and TV too much. Check out my other reviews somewhere over here. I don't know where they are. Bye-bye.